Greetings, subscribees, and welcome to my first YouTube commentary. It will be on Disney vs. non-Disney villains round 14. My partner in this project, 73 Winman, has been doing his own commentaries for a while, which have been very informative and I've enjoyed, so I thought I would try my own on the final round, as I had some thoughts to give. I hope you enjoy. We begin with Hades and the Titans versus Ares and her Titans. We always knew that a Hades versus Ares battle was going to occur, and we always had it scheduled for the final round. And to be honest, I didn't really know how I was going to do it, but it stayed pretty constant throughout. So in the end, we came up with the idea of her having her own group of Titans. And another idea I considered was her taking the form of Sinbad, which he does in the movie, and having a fight with Hades that way, but yeah, it didn't really work, and it was a bit anticlimactic as well to show Hades just punching Sinbad for the final battle. I'm not entirely satisfied with this one, to be honest, because one of the Titans just sort of vanishes. The Red Bull walks into the sea. I don't think it really worked. People seem to like it though, I've not gotten any complaints, but it's probably my least favourite of this round, and I think it could have been done better. There's Sharptooth dying again. Sorry, Sharptooth fans, he did not do very well. And Ares has mysteriously disappeared. On to Maleficent versus Rothbart. This was also a fairly constant one in the build-up, and we wanted a big sorcerer showdown. So we have one. We have two, actually. We have Jafar versus Rasputin coming up. We see Maleficent just punishing the minions there for their screw-up in the last round when they ran away like cowards from Ramesses. She was not best pleased about that. They have proven themselves to be utterly useless, especially when Rothbart just disposes of them with a wave of his hand here. They never get any respect. Nor should they. Reusing a bit of dragon footage here from Maleficent's battle against Sharptooth in round 4. I don't think there was really another way to do it, because we'd used up most of Maleficent's footage by this point, and I didn't really want to go through and reuse bits that were too obvious. But I think I got away with it here. Rothbart also transformed back in round 1, and I reused a bit of that too, but I think it works. I don't think it's too noticeable that we've seen this before. Kinda sad to see Rothbart go, I have to say. You get attached to these characters when you're doing the tournaments, and in a way I wish he'd won, but I think I would have been mobbed by angry Maleficent fans if he had. On to Frolo versus Ruba now, which has been pretty much the driving conflict of the tournament. It's kind of hard to do this one, as Ruba never really has a proper sword fight with anybody. He just sort of waves it around and threatens everyone, so you don't really see them come to blows as perhaps they should have. It's more waving their swords around and shoving each other around. This was a battle that we knew the outcome of fairly early on, but that I still was possibly having second thoughts about, because I do love Frollo as a villain. So even up until the end I was sitting there thinking, maybe he should win. But in the end, Ruba won. Ratigan versus the Mouse King was a very late addition to this round, actually, after a lot of people had said Ratigan hasn't had much to do. Is he going to be in the last round? He's been there since round 1. So I thought, we'll throw him in there. I think he's come far enough. And even though he's only had, I think, 4 fights, he's showed up quite a bit, all in all. And this is the culmination of his story arc. Morgana and Ursula versus Messina. Sort of. I cheated a little here by having Ursula be the one to take out Morgana. I always had the idea in the back of my head that Morgana had resurrected Ursula only to sort of prove her superiority, which is why she snatched the trident and ruined Ursula's little scheme with Frollo earlier on. So Ursula gets her own back here, and Messina sort of comes back for the trident, which she lost in round 1. It wasn't really very clear, but I always imagined that after their battle in round 1, the trident just sort of disappeared and Messina went off to find something else. And here's the end of Morgana. I know that's kind of Disney versus Disney, which we said we weren't doing, but it works, I think. I think we got away with it. I did cheat a bit from now and time to time. But there you are. I couldn't see another way to resolve it satisfactorily, to be honest. A big Messina? There's no such villain. Messina and Ursula battle tops that off. This is Captain Hook versus Hollywood, which on the face of it sounds a bit mad because they don't really have anything in common. But I had this suggested by 73 Windman, who suggested that we use footage of the live action Hook and have another live action battle, which was an idea I really liked. And we've built up throughout our tournament, I think, the fact that Captain Hook in this particular tournament is a badass who has just done really well against everybody. And I sort of always liked the portrayal of Hook as a ruthless, cunning villain, rather than the bumbling coward he was often presented as. So I chose to go all the way with that in my tournament. We were going to use the Dustin Hoffman Hook. That was the first suggestion, but a lot of his footage was in the daylight, and to make this work I needed nighttime footage, so we used Jason Isaacs. Rasputin versus Jafar, which is probably my favourite battle of this round, and also one of the ones when the tournament was first suggested, was pretty much the first idea I think we got, which was good because it makes sense. They look a bit alike, their powers are quite alike, both sorcerers, and it was actually quite painful holding off on this for 14 rounds, because it was originally going to debut much earlier, probably round 2 or something when we were first coming up with the plan for the tournament, but I decided that it should really be sort of the ultimate battle to come right at the end, so went all out with this sorcerer battle, which I think is probably the best one throughout the series. We weren't really sure who should win either, and Jafar's my favourite Disney villain, so I didn't want him to die, and Rasputin's one of my favourites, so I didn't really want him to die, and I didn't really want one of them to get the better of the other, so we said, what if it ends in a draw? And 73 Windman, I think it was, came up with a suggestion that he gets banished to Limbo, and then at the same time Jafar is trapped in the lamp, so neither one of them technically dies, and Rasputin can still come back, and Jafar can still come back. Despite turning to dust there, I'm sure he'll be fine. And here is Mock versus Dr Vasilia, which is another rematch from back in round 1. That Vasilia has been pretty much waiting for this for 13 rounds, a year I think, possibly 11 months. He's been sitting around waiting for this big rematch with Mock, and it's one of the ones I've been most looking forward to doing as well, as Mock's storyline is something that I've really enjoyed. Strangely, even though he's my favourite non-Disney villain, there was never a point at which Mock was going to win, even though he has this big grand plan. He's planned everything better than everybody else. He ultimately gets screwed over by me. Sorry, Mock. Better luck next time. The idea here was that Mock had gone a bit too far for the friends on the other side by releasing this demon, so they ultimately decided to throw their sway in with Vasilia once again and side against Mock, and in turn they used their voodoo powers to banish the demon. And then Vasilia comes up now, there he is, and knocks Mock down the pit. An ignoble end there for Mock. I do feel bad a little about killing him, but he's not quite dead, as you'll see. Here's the Epilogue, which basically sums up all the characters' fates at the end of this series. There are probably a few more that we could have put in. We don't really see what happens to Zurg. We don't find out what happens to Hook. He's still in the live-action universe. He was originally meant to show up with Ratcliffe as his second-in-command when Ratcliffe takes over England and proclaims himself king. But I just sort of forgot. My apologies. But we will follow it up next time. Shan Yu takes over China there, which was something I liked. I would have gladly favoured Shan Yu as my emperor if I lived in China. Yzma takes over Peru, I believe it is. Yzma survived quite a bit in our tournament and ultimately did very well for herself. Ramsey is taking back Egypt. The idea here was that he throws Hotep and High out because they were so disloyal earlier on, just cowering before Maleficent when the Horn King took over. Mansley gets Tremaine and Drizella as his maids, which I thought was quite funny. It was an idea I had for a long time. Rasputin's still okay. Well, he's not okay, he's dead. But he's in limbo. And Ruba becomes king of the world. So he did pretty well for himself there. And he also inherits all the other villains' armies, which he can now use as he wishes, which was pretty lucky for him. All of this is overseen by Maleficent, who's pretty worn out from everything she's been through, and then finds out that Ruba has taken over, which is something she is not best pleased with. And finally we have Frolo, who is sadly in hell with Chernobog, which was an idea I came up with fairly late on to present Chernobog as the devil himself. And that's the end. Thank you everyone for watching this. I hope you've enjoyed all 14 rounds. As you'll see in a moment, there will be a second war, which will be taking place in early 2012. Don't know the exact date yet, but it'll probably be fairly early on in the year. Having the second war was something that we thought of pretty much at the last minute, when we realised there are quite a few villains left, quite a few things we could do, and just wanted to follow up the storyline, really. And this last little moment here is indeed Mok climbing out of the pit. So thank you everyone for listening. I hope you've enjoyed.